I got hooked into it from probably the worst Hell in the Cell match ever, which was The Undertaker versus the Big Boss Man. And at the end of this match, The Undertaker basically hangs Big Boss Man from his neck. And so I was hooked from there. I don't know what that says. I really don't know what that says about me as a 10-year-old child.
Hello! Welcome to Believe, the Conspiracy Theory podcast. I'm Phil Green.
And I'm David Ferguson.
And this is a podcast all about the world's craziest conspiracy theories, isn't it?
Unless it's the revealed truth, because sometimes it is.
That's true, and today it may well be. Who knows? In each episode, we bring on a fellow comedian. That comedian has picked a conspiracy theory they want to talk about. It might be conspiracy theory they believe. It might be conspiracy theory they don't believe. It might just be conspiracy theory they've heard, and they need two people to make sense of it.
And we are those two people.
Now, we're doing some podcast live shows a bit later on this year.
Yes,
and
we
early
are.
next year, aren't we?
Yes. Very excited about that. We get to do it in front of an audience. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And where can people find the link if they want to come along to those?
If you look in the show notes, you'll see the links for the next dates that we're doing live. We'd love for you to join us because it's more fun when it's more of us.
Come along. You'll see loads of stuff that we don't do in the normal podcast. It's a lot of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm more unhinged.
Yes, he definitely is more unhinged, especially if he hasn't slept. Now, where can people follow us on social media?
Oh, we're all over social media. If you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, and just follow the handle Believe Conspiracy Pod.
Yeah, it's where we put up exclusive content related to the conspiracies we've been talking about, photos, videos, loads of stuff. Tell us what you think about the conspiracies. Tell us what your opinion is. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? We want to know your opinion, don't we?
Yes, we do, because we do it for you.
We do it for you.
And we like doing it all together.
Yeah, we do.
Also, I feel very alone because I keep on being told that I'm the one that's in the wrong. Anyway, so I believe.
Let's see. I think if you're going to find your community anywhere, it's going to be online. Now, if you enjoy this podcast, please give us a little 5-star review. And we're trying to build a few more reviews. Go onto Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast. Give us a little 5 stars. Tell us what you think of the podcast. We want to know, don't we?
Yeah. Are there ways that we can improve? Are there things that you love? Like we might be doing things that we think no one likes that, and you love it. So tell us.
Probably not that bit in the review.
But don't put that in the review. Just tell us that you love us.
Now, George is here.
He's dressed like a director today.
He's looking very professional today, isn't he?
He is. He is got the cap on and like clothes.
He's taking it seriously now.
Yes.
We finally got to the point where he's taking this podcast seriously, and we're all the better for it.
Oh yeah, he's the best in the biz.
Yes. If people want to tell us what conspiracies they would like us to cover, how can they do that?
I love carrier pigeon. Telepathy is also really, really good. But if you just want to be normal, you can email us at believeconspiracypod@gmail.com.
A lot of the conspiracies that we've been covering in our live shows have been those that you have suggested to us. So keep them coming. Come along to a live show, and then maybe you'll even see it covered. Who knows?
Oh, that would be amazing. But yeah, carrier pigeon.
Okay. And who is today's fabulous guest?
I have nothing but great things to say about this glorious woman. She is one of my favorite people on the planet. She's gorgeous. She's fabulous. She's a diva. I am a gay man. I love a diva. It is the wonderful, the sublime, the gorgeous Sikisa.
The wonderful Sikisa. Sikisa has been on Live at the Apollo, the stand-up sketch show. She's been on Jonathan Ross's Comedy Club. She's also a regular writer for BBC Radio. She won the People's Vote at the BBC New Comedy Award. She's also a 3-time Leicester Comedy Award nominee. And she is also the creator and presenter of the hugely successful Wrestle Club UK podcast, which is very handy for today.
Yeah, especially what we're covering.
Absolutely. And what is the conspiracy that Sikisa has chosen?
The WWE cover-ups.
Let's bring on Sikisa.
Let's bring her on.
Get out of the rabbit hole.
It's a fake. Every single bird in the sky is a robot.
It's fiction.
Doubt your government.
It's an urban legend.
Like if they're actually spraying something in the sky.
No way.
A stream of absurdity.
It's a total fabrication.
Welcome to the podcast, Sikisa!
Hello. Thank you for my lovely introduction.
That's all right.
And reading off, I'm assuming, my Wikipedia page, which I just discovered I have. That's just a gentle brag.
Oh, I got it off your website, actually.
Okay, fine.
Which I assume you had something to do with.
Which I wrote myself.
And I've been stalking you for years, so it's like between the three of us, we got
That is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
You got a Wikipedia page.
Yeah, I found out last week. I was actually very excited.
Yeah.
But also, I love the fact you mentioned my wrestling podcast, which is not as successful as you claim it to be. It's very
We're trying
niche.
to pick it up for you.
It's very niche.
It's the only wrestling podcast that I listen to, so
And that's mostly because you're on it.
Just hearing my annoying voice on this bloody podcast.
But it's a niche interest, though, isn't it? And with podcasting, like the more niche, the better, isn't it?
Yes, it's very, very niche. I thought it would be a very good idea to start this podcast because obviously a massive wrestling fan,
Yeah.
and I have been for a very long time. And now I've realized, no, don't do that. No, why? Same when I started wrestling training. Why would I do that? That's ridiculous.
You started wrestling training?
I did wrestling training at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And then...
How'd it go?
No, it was... I'm 37 years old. No. Well, at the time I was 36 years old and I still was like, no. Why would I do that to my body?
So have you given up now?
I pulled a muscle. I pulled my knee, basically.
Yeah.
I pulled my knee very badly.
Okay.
And I only got fixed in June. And by that time I was like, I've got to go to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going back. I'll probably restart it, New Year. Another New Year's resolution.
Okay. And do you want to actually like perform?
No, I've
Okay.
always seen myself as a manager.
Right.
I've always seen myself as a better manager than I was as a wrestler.
Okay.
But when I was younger, I used to hang around with quite a lot of lads and we would do wrestling moves in the park and I used to get thrown through tables and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, maybe I should actually learn to do it properly so I can actually get into a ring and act like someone's manager and then take a punch or
Yeah.
take a bump.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah.
Where did the passion come from? Like the love of wrestling?
Long story short, I got into wrestling when I was about 10 years old. And my cousin had brought over a WWF, that's what it was called at the time, pay-per-view tape, which was WrestleMania from 1999. And we were watching it and I was like, oh, this is quite cool. This is entertaining. And then I got hooked into it from probably the worst Hell in the Cell match ever, which was The Undertaker versus the Big Boss Man. And at the end of this match, The Undertaker basically hangs Big Boss Man from his neck. And so I was hooked from there. I don't know what that says. I really don't know what that says about me as a 10-year-old child.
Because that was one of the most controversial things they ever did.
Even I know
wasn't it?
about that one.
Yeah. And so since then, and then I didn't have cable because I was council estate, hashtag. And then it came to Channel 4 in 2000.
Yeah, I remember.
And I would stay up.
But not all of it, wasn't it?
No, it was 4 pay-per-views a year.
Yeah.
It was Royal Rumble. It was Backlash. It was Survivor Series and one more. I think it might have been Fully Loaded that they showed 4 times a year and everything else was basically shown on cable. But they would show Heat, which was like their Sunday show on Channel 4. I would stay up and watch that. And then if it was a pay-per-view, I would stay up and watch the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And I would get my dad to record the pay-per-views that was on cable from the house he was living in at the time with because he was looking after my gran before she passed away, and they had cable in that house. So I was like, record all these for me.
You have a job to do, father.
Yeah, you have a job to do, daddy. That's the one thing I want from you is wrestling. So, and I used to record wrestling pay-per-views and wrestling shows when I eventually did get Sky. So I have actually the whole backlog from like probably 2000 to 2006.
Wow.
On like DVD. But then the WWE network came out where you don't have to
you can just get them on demand.
Yeah, just get them on demand. So I've just got these bloody...
Yeah, but they might probably be worth something eventually.
What? Pre-recorded? Like home recorded?
Because people like physical media though. That's got some value.
Oh shit! I can't sell that.
I didn't have Sky either, and but the friends that did, I would like. I wasn't into it that massively as a kid, but I would occasionally go around and watch it on their TVs. But I got into it when I was at uni because we had a chipped ITV digital box. If you remember ITV digital, and we had literally every single channel in the world, and so we used to stay up and watch like SmackDown at 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff, and so I was into it for maybe 3 or 4 years. But that was quite an exciting era though, that early 2000s bit.
It was the Attitude Era. But when people ask me now about wrestling and podcasts, it's only recently that I remember watching wrestling in the living room of my gran's house. It's always grands that would watch wrestling on like ITV. I think it was ITV in like the early...
in the 80s.
In the 80s, there used to be British wrestling.
Yeah. So
Giant Haystacks, Big Daddy.
Exactly. So it used to be on the TV, and I remember my gran just being very aggressive with the TV. So I just remember being a little kid and watching it, but I didn't really understand what it was until like I was older.
Yeah.
But I just have this vague memory of that's happening when I was younger. But yeah, 2000s is probably the peak Attitude Era. I get a lot of people come up to me when I talk about wrestling. Oh yeah, I used to watch wrestling when I was younger, and it would be the Attitude Era. It would be The Rock, Stone Cold, Vince McMahon, obviously The Big Show, Mick Foley, HBK, you know, the classic things, Hell in the Cell matches.
Do you think that's the golden era, or do you just think that's the era that you've got the most connection with because it's when you really got into it?
Yeah, it's probably the era that I got the most connection with because it was the era that I came into.
Yeah.
And then obviously as I got older, I kind of watched backwards certain things. I kind of got into like watching like the beef between Hulk Hogan and like Andre the Giant, as well as like Randy Savage, and obviously his relationship with his manager. All of that you kind of like go back and watch. But like even as I continued to watch wrestling as I was getting older, and it was like obviously different eras changed. They had the PG era. John Cena became very popular. I'm not gonna lie, it's probably the most controversial thing I will ever say in wrestling. I am not a big John Cena fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What, as in you find him a bit dull?
I find him a bit dull. I find him
a bit dull.
I find him
because it's the invisibility thing. It's a bit shit.
Well, I understand why he was brought into the company, or like why he became like the man of the company during that time. Because to be honest, he was like the top peak superstar for a very long time. So he was the biggest company's like money maker at the time because all the kids related to him. He's got like the biggest like amount of like visiting. What's the
Make a Wish?
Yeah. He's got the record for that, so I can appreciate why. But in the ring, technically, no,
really,
no. Even like if I watch a John Cena match, I kind of was like, it's fine. I know what's gonna happen. It's fine.
Yeah.
But there was nothing like any. There was no John Sequoia. There was nothing. There was no surprises. There was no.
Because when and I don't know loads about his wrestling because he's sort of after my time, if you like. But he's got charisma. Like when I've seen him interviewed, I think he's charismatic.
Well, that's why he became an actor.
Yeah, and he's a good. He's an okay actor. But
Peacemaker was good.
Yeah. But yeah, I wonder if that was like he came in after because they started off being like wanting to attract the young audience, didn't they? Then it went into, like you said, the Attitude Era, which was the sort of darker, kind of more like adult 18 to 34 era.
Yeah, that's why the Undertaker came in, was like putting like Stephanie McMahon on the cross to sacrifice her.
Yeah. And then they went back into the sort of PG
era, and now nowadays we've come into what I like to call wrestling, which is the Triple H era.
Okay.
Who is Vince McMahon's son-in-law.
Yes.
Who has basically taken over the company creatively and has done a very good job. The last 5 years, because obviously we had the pandemic.
Yep.
The pandemic was
what happened to wrestling in the pandemic?
It still happened.
Did it?
And it happened. So initially it happened with no one in the building, which was I'm not gonna lie, it was weird to watch, having like no fans in there. And then WWE started having it where they had fans on TV screens. They built this purpose-built like stadium, or not stadium, but arena, where they had TV monitors all the way around, like maybe like 3/4 away around the arena.
Yeah.
And you could like, it was meant to be like you could hear the fans watching it live from their house and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was also a bit weird, but it was better than having no one in the building. At least, but
there's some noise. There's some actual,
there was still noise, but there's still like piping in like crowd noises and stuff like that. And then eventually, what was it, like a year and a half, maybe 2 years later, that we all managed to get like fans in the audience that you could tell everyone was like, thank God.
Yeah.
And then during that time,
that's the point of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like doing comedy at a comedy club with no audience. You wouldn't do it, would you?
Yeah, you remember when we came back from the pandemic? It was really bad because like,
it was awful.
Like people couldn't really laugh. They were wearing masks.
Yeah.
Like, I remember my first TV recording was the Jonathan Ross show, and everyone had masks on their face.
Yeah.
And even though they were laughing behind the mask, and it was the weirdest thing.
Was that your first TV thing?
First official TV thing.
That's a weird thing to come into, isn't it?
Out the pandemic.
Yeah.
It was the first official TV thing.
Did you love it though? Did you enjoy it?
I really enjoyed it. It was obviously, every time I do a TV thing, it is nerve-wracking. Well, I'm always like, if I'm not going to be funny, I'm going to look fucking hot. And I always do. And I always do for TV.
Said, if you're not watching on YouTube, she is today.
I look gorgeous in all my videos on YouTube. But it is nerve-wracking when you're like, I have to talk. And even though like TV's edited and stuff like that, you do want it to go like straight through, because it is still a comedy set. You don't want to like have to go back and do retakes.
Yeah.
And I'm a person who naturally talks quite fast, as you can tell from this podcast. So it was very nerve-wracking for me to like hold my nerves in and stuff like that. But I had friends there, and it was the same when I did Live at Apollo. Like, it was nerve-wracking. I ended up having a concussion.
Did you? What? Actually, on the day?
On the day.
What happened?
I mean, I told you this story.
No.
Oh, hang
my
on.
gosh.
Maybe you have. Is this when the thing hit you? Okay, no. Tell the story because David hasn't heard it.
I'm surprised you've not heard this story. So there's, the sign that comes up for Live at Apollo.
Yeah.
There's someone controlling it at the top. Lovely man. When we did the run through, the smoke comes up and you're meant to walk through, and the man said to me on the side, watch me, I'm going to tell you to go. And this is in dress rehearsal. And I was like, cool, watching this man. Smoke comes up. I'm start walking through, but there's so much smoke that I can't actually see. And even though it's the floor, I can't. It feels really weird when you walk through smoke because you're like, I can't see anything where I'm going, even though you just go straight forward. So I ended up not walking the normal pace I would walk. I ended up walking slowly. So I was still walking, but was just walking slowly. And unfortunately, the man up there didn't see me and accidentally put the sign down, and I walked straight into the sign head first.
Oh my gosh.
That is a big sign to walk into.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it ended up, I just kind of was like, I'm fine. Everyone's like panicking and crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, of course you did that to the
Taking
lawyer.
out one of the performers.
the lawyer performer.
Yeah.
And everyone was panicking and stuff like that. And I was like, no, it's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Luckily, there was no like bump or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then obviously went on and did the record and had a great time doing the record. And then afterwards, when we were out to celebrate, we was in like this private members club, and I was like, I'm feeling a bit dizzy. And turns out I had a concussion. Yeah.
Oh my God.
You just need to celebrate with Nurofen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, if there's any consolation, you smashed it.
Thank you. Again, she looks gorgeous.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, because now it's about like clipping those things up, isn't it? Getting out on social media. That's the way you get traction with those stuff now, right?
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, the times that we are living in has changed.
Yes. Yeah.
From the time that I started the comedy, it's all about the clips
It
and
is all
social
about
media.
the clips and podcasts.
And podcasts,
Have you ever been to a WWE match?
You mean a show?
Yes, a show. Sorry.
It's fine.
That's how we know.
Is it not a match?
There's matches
in the show.
Okay.
I understand.
Okay. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So you can say event. I've been to wrestling events,
Okay.
or wrestling shows. Yes, I have been lucky enough to go and see WWE live. I went to the pay-per-view with a couple of the Wrestle Club boys.
Nice.
And they didn't. I bought the tickets, and they didn't realize where we were going to be sitting. And it was one of the biggest ones they've done in the UK for a very long time. So I was like, if we're doing it proper.
Yeah.
And we more or less was near the front row, and they fucking shut their pants of how lucky they were to get these fucking tickets that I bought them. But I've been to non-televised wrestling WWE shows.
Okay.
I've been to televised wrestling shows for WWE. I've still not been to AEW, which is the second biggest promotion within America. I really want to go.
Is that a rival?
It's a rival.
Okay.
I really want to go to New Japan, which is obviously in Japan. I really want to go see New Japan Wrestling. I've been lucky enough to host a couple wrestling shows within the UK. That includes Eve Wrestling. Shout out Eve Wrestling, which is an all-female production.
Yeah.
I've gone to see Progress Wrestling, which is the biggest wrestling promotion within the UK. I don't know if you know Jerry Bakewell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Jerry Bakewell hosts Progress Wrestling, and he's very good at it.
Great comedian.
He's a great comedian. He's very funny. Obviously, he used to wrestle as well, so like he's very much within that industry, as well as being really, really funny. So I get to watch that once a month with my wrestling friends. Obviously, boys from the podcast, but also we bring like random who's never seen wrestling before, and it's nice to see. It's nice to take people randomly who've never seen wrestling to see a live event and how much they really enjoy it and get into it.
Yeah, because that's the beautiful thing about it, is that the fans just get so caught up in the atmosphere.
I tell you what, the chants that come out their mouth is hilarious. The chants that come out wrestlers' mouth, like wrestling fans' mouth, is so funny. They could just turn anything into a chant.
Yeah,
and you know what? Respect that. But it's also really funny to go to like a wrestling event because it's like the only time that you're going to be, as a woman, go to a sporting event full of men and not feel like intimidated.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could take any one of you wrestling fans. I could take you. I definitely could take you. Yeah.
Do you think that's changed? Do you think that, because I always think of it from being a kid as like being a predominantly male audience in the arena, but now do you think it's a far better balance in terms of like people going to see it? We won't leave all of that bit in.
It depends on the show. I think it depends on the show.
Okay.
I think there's more women that go and watch wrestling. There are obviously couples that go and watch wrestling together.
Yeah.
Who are you?
It's not a date night thing.
It's not a date night thing. Okay.
Stop going.
Unless you're going with me. Okay. But
would you take someone to a wrestling match on a first date if they've never seen wrestling before?
Not the first day. Not the first. It was me just screaming on top of the fucking game. No, not the first day.
All right.
Yeah.
If we were doing conspiracies about wrestling 30 or 40 years ago, we would be talking, because I remember being a kid, the debate was like, is it fixed? Like,
is it real?
Yeah, is it but real is like,
is it fake?
Yeah, is it fake? That's it, right? Whereas now, like, it's quite overt. Like we know it's predetermined, right? We know the results.
Yeah. That's the correct wording of it, please. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
It's not fake. It's predetermined.
It's predetermined. Yeah. However, I will say things always don't go as they plan within a wrestling ring. I have seen certain things go haywire within a wrestling match, and they've had to change the ending.
Yeah,
you can tell it's had to be changed.
Yeah.
Or for example, if there's a title change that was meant to happen, sometimes it doesn't happen because something's happened that was not meant to happen within a ring.
Can you, as a avid wrestling fan for such a long time, can you spot that? Can you see when something goes wrong and you think they're going to have to do something here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You could, there's sometimes, but it's also quite obvious if someone's been injured and it's a legitimate injury.
Yeah.
That it may not have been the ending that we were going to see.
Yeah.
But sometimes it still works. And sometimes it's just a bit obvious that how that's ended. I think probably the most infamous one for me that comes to mind really quickly is Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy is notoriously known for having substance abuse issues over the last few years. And he's dealt with his demons several times. But when he was wrestling for TNA, he was champion and came out to the ring to wrestle and defend his championship as you would as the last match from the card. That match lasted like 30 seconds, probably like 40 seconds, because he was so apparently intoxicated. And you're like, okay, that was not meant to happen that way.
Yeah.
So I think like some things have to be like on the whim, like everyone's like backstage being like, we have to like do something. Obviously things like
Did that even go out?
Yeah, it did go out.
Okay.
It went out. Things like the Montreal screw job is obviously the infamous one.
Yeah.
Or probably the edit.
It's like, we're going to talk about it, but it's
like
fine,
it's more podcast. Jules understands. Edit. The most famous one is probably the Montreal screw job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a call, wasn't it? That wasn't like something that... It wasn't something that was decided in the ring. That was decided from the side, right?
It was decided without certain people's knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much the inner circle.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Revenge.
Yeah.
Bitterness.
Okay. So
jealousy.
We're going to come on to this.
Like it's a love romantic novel.
Because it's about storylines, isn't it? That's wrestling, isn't it? It's literally about the story.
It's
right?
about the story, but it's also about very good athletic people who can do some amazing things in the ring.
Yeah.
And I think you can tell a really good story from watching a good match. I think you could do it.
Thank you. I'd love to wrestle with men.
You do that all the time.
Not as often as you'd like.
No, not as often as I'd like.
We need to sort that out.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we do. I'm withering on the vine.
Wow.
But yeah, oiled up.
Can people listening just, if you have, I think there should be a conspiracy theory about why David is not hooking up.
Because I'm a good boy. Even
It's a good Irish boy.
Believe conspiracypod@gmail.com.
You do know, you just call yourself the bad boys of the...
we're totally the bad boys of
podcast.
podcasting.
We're trying to make it stick.
We're trying to make it
stick, Twit. Okay, that's
Sometimes laughter hurts.
actually quite hurtful. Okay, whatever. Okay, this is not going to stick unless we all buy into it, yeah?
Sure. Sure.
Just take that out. Okay.
Keep it in.
So, speaking of bad boys, Vince McMahon. See?
Nice segue.
Nice
We like it.
Nice
Yeah. He's a
segue.
professional.
Okay. Vince
let me
McMahon
put
is
my
an
glasses.
American professional wrestling promoter, businessman, and former WWE chairman and CEO, known for transforming WWE, the World Wrestling Entertainment, into a global entertainment powerhouse. Born in 1945 in Pinehurst, North Carolina, McMahon initially worked for his father's wrestling company, Capital Wrestling Corporation, before taking over the business in 1982 and renaming it WWE. McMahon revolutionized professional wrestling by moving it away from regional territories to a nationwide and global spectacle. Under his leadership, WWE became a pop culture phenomenon, particularly during the 1980s and late 1990s. He was responsible for key innovations like pay-per-view events such as WrestleMania and creating the larger-than-life personas of wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Rock. Aside from his business acumen, McMahon is also notable for his on-screen character. His Mr. McMahon persona, an evil corporate villain, became a pivotal figure in WWE's Attitude Era, like we were talking about, in the late 1990s, feuding with Austin in one of the most iconic storylines in wrestling history. However, his career has been marred by numerous controversies, including legal battles over steroid distribution, allegations of covering up scandals involving wrestlers, and more recently, sexual misconduct claims that led to his brief resignation in 2022. So, Sikisa, thank you very much. Thank you. Not enough people do that, actually. Not enough people do that.
I couldn't do that. I'm dyslexic, but that's why.
What do you think of Vince McMahon?
Okay. There are two sides to every story.
Mm-hmm.
And Vince McMahon has built a company that has more or less made wrestling what it is today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We
Even I know
can't.
that.
He's allowed certain people like The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, John Cena to be Batista,
Yep.
to be the Triple H, Mercedes Moné, or she used to be called Sasha Banks in WWE, to be the people that they are today, to have the opportunities they have today. Or my husband, aka Roman Reigns. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
He is
To be.
I agree. Yeah,
He is
Roman Reigns is
sex.
hot.
He is hot.
That's how I know about wrestling.
I only came into, I was researching for this, and yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm so glad he's back. But there is another side to Vince McMahon, which is he cared so much about the business. And I will say, especially at the beginning of him taking over his father's business, he allowed himself to take risks that other people were not willing to take.
Yeah.
And that's why the business grew how it grew. He put up his house for mortgage for WrestleMania 1, and he didn't know what was going to happen with that. And now it's one of the biggest events in the world. I'm trying to go to Vegas next year to go and watch it. Someone buy me a ticket.
Hell yeah.
But on the other side of that, some of the decisions that he has made, some of the risks, some of the, I'm going to say, old school values, maybe against women, against drug, steroid use, against, there was a kind of a, I could do whatever I want to kind of vibe as
He was the king.
as his power grew, as
Yeah.
wrestling got bigger, was on primetime TV, people know who, like you say Vince McMahon, people know who Vince McMahon is. And you
I
don't
know
even
who
know.
he is.
We knew who Vince McMahon was.
And you don't even have to watch wrestling.
Yeah.
So as power grew, I think part of that went to his head.
Yeah.
Where he thought he could get away with anything and everything.
Like
And-
murder,
Controversy.
allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
But I think everyone's still a human being,
Yeah.
and there's obviously a side to Vince McMahon that we will never see.
Yeah.
We don't know we don't see his family life. He hardly ever.
Well, we do, but not the family life.
Yeah, not the family life.
The real family life, yeah.
But we don't. I've never actually seen him, his wife, his kids grown up, like outside of the wrestling.
Yeah.
But because wrestling is so ingrained in all of their lives,
That's it.
it's become sort of like emerged.
Yeah.
It's become together.
Yeah. Because the character of Mr. McMahon
Yeah.
is a ramped up version of him, right? It's a
Yeah.
huge, and like you said, his power grew. He created this character, but we don't know at what point he stops and the character takes over, or how much of that character, like you said, is merged. Because this is his life, this is his world. He lives and breathes WWE, doesn't he? That's everything.
And I think you could tell that when he was forced recently to resign, and then within like 5-6 months, my man was back on the board, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because there was a point when he resigned, everyone's like, oh, okay, it's about time. It is about time. Yeah, cool. Let someone else take over. Let's just move on. And then he came back and we were like, oh, shit.
And do you think wrestling fans shared that? Do you think that they all felt that? Yeah.
We all kind of felt like, if you're a hardcore wrestling fan, there was a point where it got too much.
Yeah.
It went too far.
Mm-hmm. And can you give us an example? Because I literally don't know. I mean, I get the idea, but...
For me, his attitudes towards women, especially on TV, as a woman growing up, so I got into wrestling when I was 11 years old, and it was the attitude era where women were just seen more or less for their bodies.
Yeah.
They were sexy, they were managers. If they did wrestle, they weren't great. There was only like 5 good wrestlers in WWF at the time. It was called WWF at the time. There were Lita. There was, and this is like there was Trish Stratus. Yeah. Trish Stratus grew into becoming a great wrestler. When she initially was in WWF/WWE, she wasn't a great wrestler. She just had massive boobs. She was wearing a cowboy hat. She came out in short shorts and she was like sexy manager. And she ended up being involved in a storyline with Vince McMahon, which culminated in 2001. Where there was a point where I think he made her get on her knees, bark like a dog or something like that.
Like a dog,
It was this, like, as a young girl watching that, you're like, is this what we're doing to? Is this? And that would never happen in this day and age. That would never happen on TV. If that happened, you'd be like, what the hell is going on?
Do you think?
Because in regards to female wrestlers, I was a big fan of Chyna.
Oh yeah, Chyna.
I really, really love Chyna, and Chyna really has an unfortunate trajectory. She died very young, and she posed for Playboy, which I thought was groundbreaking. I'm a big fan of Playboy. I think it is a feminist statement. Anyway, and they sort of kind of got rid of her, and
But there's a reason why they got rid of her. Do you know?
No, do I want to know? Because I like Chyna.
Chyna was groundbreaking, but she was wrestling men. She was the first woman to win the Intercontinental Championship, which was a man's belt. She didn't end up winning the women's championship until like 3 years later. She never went for that belt. That was not what she went for. She went to wrestle men. She was Triple H's bodyguard. In real life, her and Triple H were dating until he ended up getting involved in the storyline with Stephanie McMahon. And then they ended up in a relationship. And then Chyna ended up getting sidelined and pushed back and not realizing that this was happening behind her back. That's the rumor. That's the conspiracy. That's the rumor.
Okay.
And then she got fired.
Okay. Because the Stephanie McMahon Triple H storyline started off as a storyline and then it became a relationship.
Yes, in real life.
In real life, yeah.
And now Triple H is now running the company.
Yeah. Some conspiracy theorists think that was a play by him.
I've heard this quite a feue times. Yeah.
Do you buy into that, or you?
Okay.
Now we're getting into it.
I don't even care about this stuff, and I'm riveted. Right, come on.
If anyone knows me, knows I love a bit of gossip. I love a bit of gossip.
Yeah.
So when this all came out about Triple H, Chyna, Stephanie, I was like, oh, this is hot tea. But as the years went on, and you see Triple H becoming more predominant as champion, holding the championship, having more power with the championship, being able to like do certain things with his faction, and even ending up becoming like the authority. And then as the authority getting the championship back. The only reason why he's probably not got this belt right now is because he can't wrestle anymore.
Yeah.
He physically can't wrestle. I feel like there would have been one more opportunity for him to get the belt, if anything. And I wouldn't be mad about it. But there was, as soon as like those stuff will happen, you're like, oh, you're good, Triple H. You're good. Getting with the boss's wife? Yeah. But also, in the backhand, because of that happened, you're kind of like, you can't fuck this up.
No, he can't.
You can't fuck this up.
No, he can't at all. Because as soon as he does, if that ends, he's out.
He's
surely.
out. He's out.
And there's nowhere for him to go.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like China.
Oh, R.I.P. China.
But because obviously he didn't necessarily choose the storyline, because the wrestlers get told what storyline they're going to play, right? So he got told that storyline. The relationship happened organically, as we understand it, during the storyline.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like he's made a play, and maybe he hasn't, but he's maybe thought, oh, while I'm in this storyline,
I might as
this
well.
could work out well for me.
Yeah.
And it has.
Yeah. You know what, it has? Yeah, it really has. He's running the company now. And you know what? Triple H, you're doing a great job. I'm not going to lie to you.
You're a big Triple H fan.
I am, actually.
Yeah.
He's one of my top 10 wrestlers.
Who's your favourite? Who's your top?
Undertaker. Always,
Really?
Always The Undertaker.
Yeah.
Love The Undertaker.
Didn't The Undertaker always go by The Undertaker even when he wasn't in the ring? Didn't he call himself The Undertaker in real life?
Yeah, yeah. Until like recently.
Okay.
Yeah. People will call it. I mean, he's the Undertaker. You can't not.
You can't not call
Like,
The
I
Undertaker.
can't look at Kane. Kane is like the mayor of Knott County, and I'm like, he's Kane. I can't call him Glenn. It's weird. I can't call him Glenn.
Yeah.
He's the mayor of Notts County. Where is your mask, Kane?
Yeah. So one of the biggest controversies is the theory that surrounding a potential cover-up in the murder case involving Jimmy Superfly Snuka, which primarily revolves around the 1983 death of his girlfriend Nancy Argentino. Argentino died from a head injury after an altercation with Snuka in a Pennsylvania motel. At the time, Snuka claimed she accidentally hit her head, but doubts arose due to inconsistencies in this story and the nature of her injuries, which includes signs of trauma. So this was very early on in the Vince McMahon era, wasn't it? So this happened
1980s.
Yeah, it happened literally about a year after he'd taken over. And the controversy here basically comes from the fact that when Snuka was at the police station, McMahon turned up with a briefcase, which may or may not be filled with cash. And no charges at the time were actually brought. It was not dropped, but it was left open, wasn't it?
Yes, there was the talk that how charges should have been made, but the police have stated that Vince McMahon and the WWE have been very cooperative.
Yes.
That was what they quoted as saying.
Yeah.
They've been very cooperative. There have been talks that obviously Vince McMahon and his powerhouse bribed whoever to drop charges or not take it any further. The whole situation is obviously just devastating. It's quite a sad story, to be honest with you.
Yes,
and I think around that time where there was no regulation about what wrestlers do outside of the ring, aka drug use, was obviously a massive implication in this situation, because there was like rumors for years that, and again it's just rumors, I'm not saying anything, that but Jimmy was like a coke head, and that how when he was on coke he would go crazy, and there's like rumors that how his wife had turned up with massive bruises on her face and stuff like that. So it's not like it's a nice story, but I can understand why, if it is the case that Vince McMahon was trying to protect his asset, if you want to put it that way. Whether it is true or not is a different situation. I would lean towards that potentially Vince is something that I could see Vince doing. Yeah. Especially at that time. It wouldn't be like it would be like £1 million. I don't think it'd be that, because obviously it's 1980s. Yeah. But if it was, that'd be crazy.
Because the hard thing here is because now you look at the character of Vince McMahon and he paints himself as the evil villain, right? So now it's very easy to imagine him doing that in that character of Vince McMahon. This was before really he created that character, really, wasn't it? He was kind of
really any success. Yeah. Like, I mean, it was on the way, but
this is why
Superfly was one of his early big characters, wasn't he?
Which is why I say this is why potentially he wanted to protect his asset.
Yes.
Because at that time as well, he was trying to build this company. He wanted to be seen as the person, because at that time, also he was like taking wrestlers from different regions. This
Yeah.
is when the region situation was kind of like merging into like him taking over the world, if you want to put it that way, or America, with wrestling. So he really wanted to seem like legit. And if it came out that how one of his wrestlers was involved with something like that, then it would do so much damage to the legacy and the company at the time.
Yeah.
Because even, and again, this is such a sad thing to bring up, and it's a name that we rarely bring up in wrestling nowadays, but Chris Benoit is probably the most devastating story within wrestling. And how Vince McMahon dealt with that when we all found out what actually happened, you can see how much he tried to retract from the whole situation.
Just for our listeners, what was that situation?
Unfortunately, Chris Benoit did not turn up for one of the pay-per-views, which always happened on a Sunday previously until probably the last couple of years. And it turned out that he murdered his wife and child and then committed suicide in his home, and was found by authorities and a fellow wrestler who went to check up on him. And then, because the pay-per-view was on a Sunday, all people heard was Chris Benoit was dead. So on the Monday, the first thing that happened was that there was a massive tribute to Chris Benoit. And the whole, which was Raw.
Yeah.
Which happens on the Monday night.
Yeah. And all the wrestlers were there.
All the wrestlers were there. Yeah. There were tributes. There were people crying. It was 2 hours of this memorial for Chris Benoit. Within 24 hours of not having the details, and then SmackDown happened, which was recorded a few days later when obviously the details came out, and Vince McMahon kind of was like, "It's sad what happened, but let's move on." Yeah, that was kind of the vibe.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that they talk quite a lot about in the Mr. McMahon documentary is that he made the decision to go ahead with the show on that night, and it seems to be one he's slightly torn about whether maybe they shouldn't have done it. Yeah. I mean, clearly they shouldn't have done it. But they didn't know the details.
I suppose because, especially at that time, Benoit was such a figure within wrestling.
Yeah.
And it was, having that thought was something none of us ever thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
That was nothing that I ever thought was going to be the situation. Because previously his friend Eddie Guerrero, one of his best friends, passed away the year before, and he died of like a heart attack, more or less. So you just kind of think, oh, that's what's happening. Like, it's just someone else having a heart attack. But when you find out details, you're kind of like, oh, that's dark. What is going on backstage?
Yeah.
What is going on with wrestlers' mind? And I think that was the first time that a lot of people were like, oh, these people are actually human beings.
Yeah.
There's actually a life behind wrestling.
Yeah.
So it was dark, it was sad. I think they've now taken note whenever a wrestler does die, especially if it's like a show happening straight after, where they're kind of like, oh, we kind of have to think about what we do. I've not seen like another massive tribute like that. If they do a tribute, it would normally be like bells ring at the start of the show.
Yeah.
And then there's like a potentially like so Bray Wyatt passed away recently, who was one of my favorite wrestlers. And there was like wristbands, people were wearing wristbands in tribute of him. And recently his brother's just come back and had a new like faction made up. So those kind of things, I think they've taken into note about how to deal with people's deaths. But like, especially when they don't know the full story.
Yeah. I mean, it's a horrendous story.
It's a horrendous story.
But do you think that there's part of Vince McMahon that thinks ratings when something like this happens?
Yeah, definitely. I think, so Vince McMahon, so this happened, he's probably thinking ratings. Like, he has celebrities on the show as well. Mm-hmm. So like people like Trump has been on this show. Yeah. Trump's been in wrestling. Yeah. Trump's wrestled.
Trump's wrestled McMahon kind of, hasn't he?
Trump's wrestled kind of. They've had like big superstars like Bad Bunny, who's massive in America, wrestle. He's actually a bloody good wrestler, I will say that. He can wrestle, I will say that. Snoop Dogg's come and performed.
Tyson.
Obviously, Muhammad Ali for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, ratings. That's all Vince McMahon is thinking about, is like, how do we get ratings? Because obviously you want to make money. And like, you can see how since Triple H is taking over the direction that he's gone with, especially like Raw's being moved to Netflix.
Yeah.
At the start of 2025, he's just moved SmackDown back to, it's either the USA Network or CW Network, one of those. But he's just moved back to that. Like, he's taking it to a point where he's like, he's thinking about how do we grow? Even with The Rock coming back this year.
Yeah.
Which, oh my God. Like okay, for those who don't watch wrestling, there is a YouTube, it's gonna be, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be like an hour. But take an hour out of your life and just watch the Bloodline trilogy. Like, the Bloodline for the last 3 years has been, the storyline has been so amazing. Just watch it, okay? Because it has everything. It's got family, it's got conflict, it's got third parties being involved who are not family, aka Sami Zayn, but he's hilarious and makes people laugh when they're not meant to be laughing. And then you've got The Rock coming back at the beginning of this year, changing the concept of what was meant to be a WrestleMania fixed match, which had been planned since last year, which was meant to be round 2 of Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. And then The Rock came back and everyone was like, oh, we want The Rock. And then he mentioned about Roman Reigns and they were like, oh, let's do that instead. And then Cody Rhodes is then pissed off because he's lost his WrestleMania match. And then everyone's like, no, we want Cody. And then they're like, oh my God, we need to bring Cody back. How do we do this? And they were like, oh, it's 2 nights for WrestleMania. We can have The Rock on one night. And then we can have The Rock back on the second night, just getting involved in a match. It's amazing. Just watch. Just watch. Okay.
I think you need to work for Triple H. Like, that's an incredible sales pitch, Twix.
Oh my God, Sikisa, I want to see a show that you present for them.
Seriously.
Oh my God, I'm excited about this and I don't care.
I'm just waiting for the offer. Just whenever you're ready.
That's a great sales. We'll send it to them. Do you think then that Triple H's running of it has changed the tone of WWE? It's changed the way that storylines are done now. Do you think he would go as far as Vince McMahon?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I think Triple H is smarter than that. I think also it's helpful because Triple H has been involved in wrestling himself.
Yeah.
He's seen backstage. He also was at one point.
And he's been asked to do things he didn't want to do when he was a wrestler, right?
Yeah, Katie Vick.
Yeah.
Katie Vick is a very prime example. I don't know if he was happy to do it, but like, it was not a good look. It's a notorious.
What was that with Katie Vick? Because I don't even know who that is.
So Katie Vick, Kane, aka the mayor of Knox County, was involved in a storyline with Triple H. And backstory of Kane is that how he was burnt as a child that's why he's wearing a mask. But he was in love with this girl, and this girl has passed away. And Triple H, there's Triple H is in this where they have bodies.
Cemetery, a morgue.
Yeah, they were not in a morgue, but like the funeral home.
Okay,
he's in a funeral home, and he's dressed like Kane, and starts humping a dead body.
Oh, I think I did see a clip. Well, actually, they didn't show the whole thing.
No. But
they just showed, like, they alluded to it.
Yeah,
and
basically.
I wondered what that was.
In the words of Maggie Smith in Murder by Death, how tacky.
Yeah, it was not a good look. Other things he's probably been involved in that he's not, obviously there's notoriously the click situation that happened, the first kayfabe situation that happened where he was actually, because it was him, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, and I should know this from the top of my head, Scott Hall. Of course, it didn't even come up, and I knew who he was as soon as he came up. Scott Hall. They all were called the Click,
right? And
it was something that was not shown on TV. They're all friends, but it was not shown on TV. It was something that everyone knew that they were all friends. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were leaving the company, and one of the last matches that happened was Kevin Nash. I think it was Kevin Nash or Scott Hall was facing Shawn Michaels in a cage match.
Yeah.
And it was decided that at the end of the match, everyone will come out, the Click, and we'll just hug each other as like a curtain call. That's what it was called. A lot of wrestlers.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it was kayfabe.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like showing like, oh, wrestling's not real.
Yeah.
They're friends, actually. A lot of old school wrestlers backstage, including, for example, The Undertaker, did not take kindly.
It broke the facade, didn't it?
They did not take kindly to this happening.
Yeah.
And because of that, Vince McMahon, even though he technically authorized it, was kind of like, you know what, then I'm going to have to punish some people. But he couldn't punish Scott Hall or Kevin Nash because they were leaving the company anyway. That was the whole point of this. He couldn't punish Shawn Michaels because he's one of his biggest sells within the company.
Yeah.
So who got punished? Triple H. He was meant to win King of the Ring that year in 1998.
Yeah.
Didn't win it.
Yeah. And he knows that was the reason why, doesn't he?
No, everyone knows.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that's the reason why.
Yeah.
He couldn't. He understands certain things about backstage etiquette. He knows about how it is to be a wrestler, to be a performer, and I think especially in this day and age where you have to be concerned about women, women's rights, how they're viewed on TV, how appropriate to do things, what the fans want. And he's listening to the fans, and you can see this within the stuff that he's doing within the company.
Yeah, he's more sensitive to the world as it is than Vince McMahon. Because actually, and I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but going back to this Jimmy Snuka thing, he a few weeks before this, there was an incident in a hotel, right, where the police were called out. Jimmy Snuka had been having a huge row with Nancy Argentino. That he was out in the hallway, she was in the bedroom in a sheet or something. They're having the shouting match. The police turn up. He piled her into a room. The reason that the police had been called is because like the other people in the hotel had reported it. They'd said there's something going on. They feel like someone was being like physically abused, and this whole thing leaked to the press. So there was a big thing about it. And the way the media reported it wasn't that she'd been physically assaulted. It wasn't about the abuse. It wasn't about the drug use that was alleged. It was humorous. It was like, a pro wrestler fights off police, because he fought off like 6 police guards, and that was the story. It was funny. It was like feeding into that. And there's a lot of there's a theory that Vince McMahon was involved in that, as in like the way the story was portrayed to the media, because it's good for the image of WWE. This guy fighting off like police officers.
Yeah. I think especially at that time where he's thinking about having like majority of his wrestlers, well, like say half of his wrestlers at the time were like bulky men who were like, we can do anything, we can fight. So he needed to like uphold that image for people to be engaged with wrestling. And I think at that time, ratings, he was like, this is his version of like getting ratings. Oh, we're intrigued. We want to see what's going on. So
there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Oh, there is.
But that's the thing, but he's a master, and in a similar way to maybe Trump, at seizing those opportunities and going, how can I turn this into my advantage and my company's advantage?
Yeah, and I think when we had the steroid trial, we saw that. Yeah, we saw that definitely, because he came out with a neck brace. He apparently had neck surgery just before the trial. How convenient! How convenient! Apparently, he didn't even need to do it so soon. This is the rumor that he didn't need to have the neck surgery so soon, but he decided to have neck surgery, and so he came out during the trial with a neck. I don't know where the voices come from, but he has come out into the trial with a neck brace to apparently get sympathy. For himself. It's
a bit like Harvey Weinstein and the Zimmer frame thing, isn't it? It's that kind of, but it feels like an intentional play in almost that people know he's doing it, and he knows that they know as well, which means he must have been very, very confident of winning the case.
Well, a lot to do with this case. I think it was the whole point of this case was, if you don't know, is that how
he was indicted in 1993, right? So the accusation was that he was allegedly distributing anabolic steroids to WWE wrestlers, right?
That he was in this association. So it's like he basically was like assisting.
Yes, assisting. Yeah,
he was assisting, because there was a doctor who was arrested.
Yes,
and put on trial and charged. But his one was more interesting because one of the government's prime witnesses was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And Hulk Hogan had actually left the company at the time of the trial. So
He'd gone to WCW at this point.
he'd gone to WCW. It was more money.
Yeah.
It was more flexible hours.
Yeah.
Because Vince McMahon was running these people in the ground, working them 365 days a year. So it was more flexible. And so the government were like, we've also got stuff on you, Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
We're fully aware that you were doing steroids or whatever they had on him. And they assumed that he was going to get on trial, get on the stand, and rat out Vince McMahon. Yeah. And apparently he didn't.
No,
he did the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were shocked considering that how he had just left WWE.
Yeah. He did admit to using steroids,
but he didn't admit to the amount that people had claimed he had used. There was a TV show that he had come on, and he had obviously the question about steroids has come up, and he basically said, "I've never done what they've accused me to do. I've never been an addict. I've never done this. I've only taken steroids twice in my life." That's what he said.
Yeah.
He's only taken steroids twice in his life. And everyone was saying, no, you take steroids every day. Obviously, look at you. I've injected you myself and all this. That was all what was going on. And Vince McMahon apparently had told Hulk Hogan himself, just go on TV and just admit it.
Yeah.
It will look better for you if you just go on.
Yeah. Which Hulk does admit to.
Yeah. So I think there was a part of Hulk Hogan that was kind of like, even though I've left the company, I respect him as a businessman. I respect him as a man, but also he's done so much for me. Mm-hmm. And whether Hulk Hogan was lying on the stand or not is a different kettle of fish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because Hulk Hogan did return,
of course,
to WWE, didn't he? And this is the thing, is that Vince McMahon has had so many scandals and lawsuits and relationship breakups with various wrestlers and various people that work for him, and yet despite all of that and the fact that they've sued him for hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases and won against him, he still brought them back for a storyline years later, right?
Ratings, it's money.
Exactly.
Prime for Hulk Hogan, who ended up turning out to be a racist, but they still brought, and again, after that incident when he came out to be racist, after they brought him back the second time, they still brought him back.
Yeah.
And they got him to host, I think it was WrestleMania with a black man. Yeah. And I was sitting there going, of course you've done this, WWE. Of course you've done this. Of course you've done this. Hulk Hogan can't be racist because he's hosting with a black man. Fucking hell. Anyway, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, CM Punk.
Okay.
But CM Punk has returned recently, not under the Vince McMahon era.
Okay.
Because when CM Punk left or got fired or whatever it was, it basically was that Vince McMahon sent him this letter or whatever, this you're fired situation. Oh, your contract's done, the day of his wedding or the day before his wedding.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know.
And it is all about the storyline, right? It's all for the drama.
Yeah. And so when CM Punk came back, I'm not going to lie, we were all like, that's never going to happen. Oh, it happened. It happened. Hell froze over, as CM Punk would said.
And do you think that Vince McMahon he's able to kind of like move on from his he's able to disconnect his emotions from his business decisions, because everything seems to be about the success of the company, making money, right? Viewers, numbers. So his own personal feelings are just kind of like either forgotten or pushed to one side or left behind, so that he can make a decision that he knows will increase numbers, however controversial that may be.
I think if you do any job, you have to, especially in a job that involves people, you have to separate a personal line to what's best for business. As they keep saying in wrestling.
Sure.
What's best for business? Even drug dealers. I'm sure drug dealers are like at home going, I can't believe I'm selling drugs.
But even when
to these kids while they're driving this Mercedes car, I'm sure they're saying that. Those kind of things.
But even when people are dying, because a lot of wrestlers have died young, that's a thing, isn't it? Yeah. And a lot of that has been attributed to head injuries and also steroid use and drug use they had during their wrestling careers, right?
GHB.
And Vince McMahon has kind of denied any responsibility for that or not taken any responsibility for that.
Well, he kind of at one point was kind of implying that how WWE they're doing tests and everyone's clean and all this, and would suspend people for having a drug test that was not positive. Those kind of things happen for certain people, but not for everyone.
Yeah.
So it was very much like pick and select.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're glad he's left the company?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think it's better for the company. I think it's best for business.
Okay. And you feel that WWE has improved since he's gone?
Yes. Again, watch the Bloodline storyline. That's all I'm telling you. Watch the Bloodline storyline. It's taken 4 years.
If you take anything from this episode, watch the Bloodline storyline.
3.5 years of this magic. Oh, great.
The tale of our time.
Great.
So Vince McMahon's career is filled with a complex mix of incredible achievements and deeply troubling controversies. These conspiracies surrounding him reflect both his immense influence and the darker side of WWE's operations under his leadership. From alleged cover-ups and manipulations of outcomes to accusations of exploitation and misconduct, McMahon's legacy is marked by his ability to navigate and, some argue, escape accountability for numerous scandals. While many of these theories remain speculative, they underscore the degree to which McMahon's power within WWE has shaped not only the company, but also the public perception of the wrestling industry. His control over the narrative, both in the ring and behind the scenes, has fueled widespread speculation about how far his influence reaches and whether justice and transparency have sometimes taken a backseat to maintaining WWE's dominance in the entertainment world. So, Sikisa, do you think Vince McMahon has covered shit up?
I would like to work for the WWE. So I ain't saying shit, okay? Snitches get stitches, and I'm trying to get rich, okay?
Well, I want you to work for them. I will watch your show. But he absolutely has covered shit up.
He's covered shit up.
He's covered shit up.
We're saying that, but Sikisa isn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's on your side, kind of.
I'm from South London. I know the destructive.
Vince McMahon is the Miranda Priestley of wrestling.
That's
Wow.
context we're going to need.
Yeah, Miranda Priestley, Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, okay, right.
Oh my God, I'm so sick of people not being homosexual.
Before we leave, can I just ask, why is there a car on the table? Is this meant to be you two?
We'll explain it to you after.
Oh, well.
Okay, the bad boys of the podcast, apparently.
Yeah, bad boys of podcasting. Sikisa is now slowly moving away from the table for the benefit of the audio. Twix, would you like to look? Sikisa, would you like to look into this camera and tell people? I've had to go through this whole episode calling you Sikisa, but we've always known you as Twix, so it's really hard for me to
It's fine.
shift.
Everyone does it.
Sikisa, would you like to look into this camera, tell people where they can find you, where they can follow you, everything you like to promote?
You can find me on social media. I am at Sikisa Comedy. Or if you type in Twix Comedy, Twix like the chocolate, it will pop up. There's some other bitch with a Twix Comedy page. It's not me. I'm me with the pretty face. So Twix Comedy on Instagram, on Facebook, as well as Twitter and on TikTok. Pow. I've got a website, sikisacomedy.com, or just come see me live. It's better that way.
Yes, definitely go and see her live. She is absolutely brilliant. Would you like a wrestling joke to end the podcast?
Oh, God. Go on.
What was the result when two silkworms had a wrestling match?
I don't know. What was the result?
It ended in a tie. Huh? Bad boys of podcasting.
Bad boys of podcasting.
That's the end of the podcast. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Please like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. The more lovely subscribers we get, the more episodes we'll make. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok for regular updates and exclusive videos at Believe Conspiracy Pod. We love you. Bye.